Hello, my name is Droolbatz, and today I'm going to be discussing the 2017 horror film Neverknock. It was featured on the Sci-Fi Channel's 31 Days of Halloween, so it's possible that you have seen it already if you watch TV a lot. I'm going to be discussing this film based on its premise, its overall production value, like its script, its acting, cameras, lighting, etc. And finally, I'm going to kind of compare it to other films of the genre, seeing how it stands out or blends in with those movies. I hope you enjoy. Okay. Neverknock is a 2017 TV film. The premise is pretty simple. There is a house in town where in 1986, I believe, some punkish teens knocked on the door and were viciously murdered. One of the teens was found with the words "Never, never knock" carved into his back. So it became known as the Neverknock house, and people are not supposed to knock on that house. Flash forward to 2017. A group of rambunctious and fun teenagers are going out for Halloween. They invite a newer girl, a girl who's newer to town, and she has to bring her little sister with her because she's babysitting the little sis. They go to a haunted house for fun. Basically what happens is the little sister is like not at all fazed by the haunted house, whereas the older teens are a little bit, like freaked out, like the fake blood and like the hands in a file cabinet and a giant spider thing. They're freaked out, but the girl's not. So for the sake of their pride, one of the brattier teenagers is like, hey, why don't you, if you're not scared, why don't you go knock on the Neverknock house, little Jenna or whatever her name is. So they go to this mysterious house, and little Jenna hops the fence and knocks on the door, and then all of a sudden the door pops open and you gasp and the teens run. And as they're running away, they realize Jenna is missing. As they begin to look for Jenna, they realize something is hunting them down, and it starts picking them off one by one based on their own individual deepest fears. So that sounds pretty familiar, right? Sadly for this movie, it came out in 2017 and aired on TV in the fall, which is only a couple months after the reboot of the Stephen King book It hit the theaters in the summer, and it was a really big deal in the summer. So I think it might have been kind of a familiar premise for some people, but it is a common premise, but it's one you can do a lot with. So the premise wasn't super unique, but it was a solid one. So production value. This was a TV movie. However, I thought the production value was actually relatively high. The cameras and such were really good. I think it's really an easy mistake to make when you are making a Halloween type horror movie to have the entire movie be set at night, so everything's really dark and oppressive. Just the color palette will be really gross, and things like that. This movie actually really avoided that because when they brought the little sister out with them, it was kind of in the day, and it has them walking around in daylight. Then they go to a haunted house, and that's scary, and it's like indoors. And then they go back out in the daylight, and it's nice, and they're at the house, and then it's like at night and daylight. And so you had a lot of contrast, and you got really a good chance to see a lot of different lighting and color tones, which isn't necessarily important to film, but it kept it visually more interesting than a lot of other like set on Halloween type movies. I thought generally the pacing, it was all right, but there were certain points where it got a little bit repetitive, or like they could have cut it out completely. For example, the movie completely opens up with this scene of the 1986 punks getting murdered or whatever, and it's just, the exposition is really long. The dialogue in that particular scene was kind of wonky. I thought the rest of the movie was alright, but I don't know, it just was very stilted. There was weird dialogue chemistry, and just it moved very slowly, so it kind of made me start to lose interest right off the bat. But then I got kind of pulled back in when it kind of jumped to modern day, because those actors were a lot better, I thought. Like, also, the scene when they're in the haunted house, it's important because it kind of helps foreshadow, what each of the main characters are afraid of, or in Jenna's case, not afraid of anything. so it was like important to like foreshadow so that you, the viewer, were aware of like what was happening with the monster. But it was illustrating each of the characters' fears. It just kind of got a little too drawn out, and I would have, if I had made the film, I would have cut down on the Halloween haunted house sequences a little bit. That said, this movie was really easy to hear. The dialogue was crisp, and the background music, it was kind of the traditional horror music, which is totally appropriate to this type of film. The music would be playing to give you, like, you know, cues and clues, but it didn't distract from what was being said, which is really important. So that really stood out to me, and I just wanted to make that clear. Some of the pacing was kind of awkward. I thought after you get past the intro, it's a lot better. There are a few spots where it gets a little drawn out, though. Overall, it's not the worst I've ever seen or anything. And finally, the acting and the dialogue. I didn't really have a problem with the script. I think a lot of what was said was actually decent. And for the most part, the acting was pretty good. There were a few spots where I was like, this is a script thing where they're like, hey, asshole, when they're talking to the monster, which is like, it's, without giving anything away, it's just like, why would you call like an obviously demonic entity that? Ever. In the beginning, again, the intro was kind of the weak point of this movie. The punks who were going to the haunted house in the very beginning, they they were really bad. Bad dialogue, bad script, just no chemistry at all. But again, we shouldn't judge the rest of the movie based on that. The rest of the movie was actually pretty decent. Tone-wise, it kind of reminded me of, if you've ever seen R.L. Stein's The Haunting Hour, it kind of made me think of like The Haunting Hour, but for a more adult audience. Which, I don't mean that as an insult, because The Haunting Hour is extremely, extremely high quality for being TV horror, featuring like kids. It was a TV movie. There were a couple of points where the special effects were not great. For the most part, the special effects were very convincing and I thought very convincing. There was like 1 or 2 spots involving like fake fire where it was just like, that's really bad CGI, but almost all of it was really good. Other than that, like I would say like 80% of the special effects were really good. Now I'm going to briefly discuss how this movie stands out from or blends into other films of the genre. I will be spoiling some stuff potentially, so if you don't want any spoilers, you can just leave right now. Okay. Are they gone? Okay. So basically this movie, as they're looking for the little sister and getting all panicky, this monster is picking them off one by one, kind of snatching them up based on their fears. Basically, because the little sister's like, the joke is like she's not afraid of anything, it's kind of, they have to find her and kind of basically be like, hey, it's up to you to stop this creature. And there's this really weird dream sequence at the end. She's fighting this monster, and the monster got like everybody basically except this little girl. And it like grabs her by the throat, and like you can see it's from the side where it's like choking her, and the monster's here, and she's like, oh. And then it keeps cutting to this scene where she's in this bath, like with her hands tied in her little Halloween suit, and the water's filling up, and she's gonna drown. And she keeps saying like, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. And it keeps cutting in between that, and then she finally like breaks out, and it's not really clear to me, was her fear drowning in a bathtub? She obviously wasn't actually drowning, she was getting choked to death by this creature, so it was just kind of interesting. One of the friends who was really tight with her sister shows up and like basically is like trying to help her kill the monster, and they end up discovering basically that the thing with the monster, because it doesn't hunt people every year who knock on the door. They're like, why was it this year? It's in the door. One of the kids who knocked on the door originally knocks on the house, and he cuts his hand on like a very obviously placed door stud. Like, I don't know, it's just kind of like, boy, you're really stupid if you cut your hand on that. But anyway, it's literally part of the decor. It wasn't like a hidden spike. But anyway, he knocks on it, and his hand gets blood on it, and that's what triggers the monster to kind of awaken. And Jenna, her hand going over the fence when she knocked on the door, so it got blood on it this time. And so once they kind of realized that the monster's trying to kill her, and this older guy who apparently believed them He was a sheriff who I guess was on the scene in the 80s. So he believed them, but nobody else did. He gave one of them a gun and was like, I can't see the monster, you know, so it's up to you to shoot it. And that friend gave the little girl the gun, and the little girl shoots the door and it kills the monster, presumably. I thought it was kind of an interesting choice to have it be the door was possessed rather than the building. So that's, I guess, one way they kind of made it a slightly more unique plot. It wasn't actually the house, it was the door. Felt unfinished in my opinion, but whatever. Premise-wise, this movie did not really stand out to me. The way it did kind of stand out and stand apart from other, like, you know, especially like teen Halloween movies, was kind of the core group in present day. Not to like stereotype, but a lot of times movies will have like several males and then like one girl who's just there, and you know, whatever. This movie, it was like, I noticed right off the bat, it was like 3 girls and then 1 boy who just happened to be dating one of them, or was he dating 2 of them? We'll have to watch to see. Gossip Girl. I don't think they meant it to be like, oh, like a female movie, but it was just like, it was really kind of cool to see a group of female friends, like mostly female friends, and then a dude on the side. I don't know, that was just kind of, that made it interesting, I thought. So kind of the opposite of the usual gender ratio in teen films. And then the main nice girl who like invited Grace, someone joked like, oh, do you have a crush on Grace? And she's like, we're taking it slow. And I was like, oh, they're dating. And they were. And like apparently, I don't know, it was just really cute. I wasn't expecting that in a TV movie. But yeah, they were just a cute, youthful lesbian couple. One thing that was really nice is like they would like hold hands and stuff. It was very like innocent and cute, and I feel like horror movies in general tend to be a little bit behind the curve, I guess, when it comes to like social awareness and stuff. And so oftentimes like gays and lesbians are really like fetishized or like sexualized in horror movies especially. So it was really nice to just see like this innocent teen couple who happened to be lesbians just having a chance to be like a sweet, cute high school couple, and like they weren't being pressured to be like, we gotta like make out for the camera. Like it was just, I just thought the way they handled that was really nice. So yeah, I would say like actual plot wise, it was not that interesting, but the way they had the characters was kind of interesting, I thought. And I thought that made it notable to me. And if you're looking for a movie with like a kind of cute lesbian couple in it, this is a movie for you, I guess. It is Pride Month, after all. Again, this was a TV movie, and like I said, the plot didn't really stand out to me that much. Instagram really took to this, I think mainly because of the lesbian couple, and they seemed really excited. I'm not familiar with most of the actresses in this movie, but a couple, like 3 of them are apparently very, very popular on Instagram. That's cool. Hopefully they make it big. I don't know. I did enjoy the movie. I would give the movie probably a 3 out of 5, maybe a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Pacing problems really annoyed me, especially that beginning intro. It was just so awkward. It really brought down the whole movie for me, but the rest of the movie kind of worked its way to making it up. But again, the plot was not that original to me, so that and the pacing problems kind of brought it down in my opinion. It's pretty good for a TV movie. It's actually, I saw it for free on YouTube, and I'll put the link in the description below so that you can watch it too if you want. Okay, hope you enjoyed the review. If you have any opinions you want to share, please do. Hope you liked it. Bye.